Hello viewers, the Gran Turismo World Series Nations Cup has returned. We are here for round number 2, a Group 4 race around Red Bull Ring. Now this race had a requirement for one pit stop. We'll see why that's important later. The Mazda Atenza is the current dominant car in Group 4. And so we're going to jump in and give it a go. Now this circuit is characterised by often getting a lot of penalties, which I demonstrate here in my 8 minutes of practice. Plenty of understeer to contend with, and that's something I was trying to dial out over the course of this little practice session. You still see here through turn 1 getting penalties 2 laps in a row, so that's something I would certainly have to avoid during the race. But I was getting used to how this car felt, especially coming up into the turn 3 hairpin, and this car actually pivots quite nicely when you really get on the brakes and off the brakes at the right time. Let's jump into qualifying of the first race. And of course qualifying is always important, and in typical style I'm going to mess it up by going 1 pixel wide and getting the infamous half-second penalty. That ruined my first lap. So I had to go back to the pit lane, to go and have another attempt. This was my second attempt, so let's take a lap around the Red Bull Ring. So through first corner, it's really about carrying the speed through and getting a good exit onto this second straight. And then off the power, back on the power as early as possible. The car rotates quite nicely actually on the apex there. And then into the latter section of the circuit. I was actually going purple here, and so this could be the fastest lap so far in the session. 2 corners remaining, of course, trying to avoid getting a penalty this time around. Dipping down into the final corner, carrying as much speed as possible, running the track limit as much as possible. Not a penalty this time around. It's going to be second place, 2 tenths away from pole. It turned out to be P4. I couldn't improve my second lap, and well, P4's not too bad. Let's jump in to the race with my cursed Vauxhall VXR livery on the Mazda. Looks actually quite nice, to be honest. But let's jump straight in. This race was going to be characterised by a very silly mistake, and it's one that is very easy to make, and I didn't really realise it at the time. So let's jump in, right? So I'm starting P4, and it's really a case of just trying to settle into the race. Let's make sure nothing horrific goes on the first lap. Let's just build into this one. It's 12 laps. We have to make that 1 pit stop at some point. And to be fair, the hard tyre we're using isn't going to wear out too much because the tyre wear isn't set to a very high amount. End of first lap then. And you can see I didn't have a good exit from the final corner. And unfortunately, this put this guy behind me very close. And I was hoping he wouldn't go for this move, but he did into turn 1. Made a right hash of it. Unfortunately here, this car ghosted, then came back out of the ghost. We made contact. As a result of that contact, I got front left damage on my wheel and then front bumper damage. And of course, a lot of time lost. And then another position lost here once the Spaniard went past. So that was just a really unfortunate moment. We got through lap 1 just fine, but then the start of lap 2, it all kicked off. I was hoping that guy would wait for turn 3 to go for the overtake. Normally turn 1 can be quite a dodgy place to go for it, but this was lap 3. I'm in P3, someone else has pitted in front, so everyone of course having to go for that mandatory pit stop at some point, and you could pretty much choose whenever you wanted to do it. Strategy didn't really matter too much. Now, getting a penalty there, I was trying to keep up with this Spaniard who was actually very quick. And I was doing a good job, but of course we're going to have to serve this penalty here just as we exit the middle sector in towards the final couple of corners. That put me out of touch with the Spaniard, and I thought because I've slowed down here I might as well take my pit stop now. And this is where I was going to make the big mistake. See if you can spot it. As we go in, everything looks normal. Choose another set of tyres. Choose not to refuel because we don't need to. We've got more than enough fuel to make it to the end of the race without having to fuel save. So the Mazda team doing a fantastic job there, and away we go. So it looked like a fairly innocuous pit stop, nothing out of the ordinary. As we leave, you can just leave it there. Did you spot the mistake? Because it was actually quite catastrophic to my chances of success. So let's take a look again. There it is. The hard racing tyre, I chose it when I actually didn't have to. I didn't technically have to change tyres, and that lost me about 4 seconds. So yes, it does say you have to do a pit stop, but nowhere on the requirements and regulations does it say that you have to use a certain amount of tyres. You can just use the same set of tyres. So it was quite a strange set of regulations, the fact you had to do a pit stop, but you didn't actually have to change your tyres. And that kind of shows you that you should always read through the race regulations and make sure you know what's going on before you jump into the race. Because this has now put me into this battle for P9 when I should be about 3 or 4 seconds further up the road had I not changed my tyres. But, well, the mistake has been made. Let's try and jump up a couple more positions and see what position I can get back to. Let's not forget we started P4, and anything less than that would be a bit of a disaster. You always want to move forward in a race, ideally. Back to P8 here. Trying to challenge here for P7. I thought I'd betray this guy by bump drafting him, and then at the last moment going up the inside towards turn 3. So a bit of a betrayal there. Not the best overtake, overcooking the brakes slightly, but taking the 7th position. Unfortunately here I just again went quite wide, carrying the brakes a bit too much, and it just meant that this guy managed to fight back. And all the time here just losing a couple of seconds. This is not ideal at all for the overall race picture. And I did manage to overtake him on the next lap, lap number 7, when he just drifted slightly wide here. Very easy to do that, and I'm back into 7th. After a couple of laps here, lap number 9, catching up with the German over the course of a couple of laps. And here is lap number 11, and the end of 11, right on his tail, onto the final lap, a couple of cars into the pit lane. We might gain one more from that, but I'm going to go up the inside anyway, and definitely gain a position here. Make sure we don't overcook the braking point this time. Heading towards the apex, nicely done. And back to P5. You can see the 4th position there, not too far away, but this is the final lap, so it's going to be really difficult to try to catch that up. I went semi-defensive here into the braking zone of turn 3 to protect the inside, and unfortunately that's given me a poor exit. So now the German's going to try to attack me here on the back straight. I'm going to have to cover the right hand side. As soon as he moves to the left, I'm going to cover him off, force him to the outside, and make sure he cannot go the long way round. So it's a really good battle here on the final lap between myself and the German. Half a lap remaining. Can I hold him at bay and get a P5? It would be a solid recovery, I suppose, after that innocuous mistake on the strategy. Then into the middle sector here. A couple of long sweeping corners. Not really a place where you can go side by side too easily. That was a poor exit, and that's going to put me under pressure here in towards the final couple of corners. Again, going very defensive, fully over to the right-hand side, making sure he is on the left before we go onto the brakes for the penultimate corner of the lap and of the race. Dipping down the hill into the final corner, and it looks like I've kept position here. It's going to be a P5. So a solid recovery, but still somewhat disappointing to finish 9 seconds off the lead. I think that could have been a podium with a different strategy without changing tyres. And you can look at it here. You can see the timer, and you lose about 4 seconds, I would say, from doing the tyre change. And just looking at the guy who won the race, I was looking at his lap times, like high 36s, low 37s, and I felt like I could easily match that pace. I was doing mid 36s during the race. So we rejoined for race number 2, and once again making mistakes in qualifying. This time around my qualifying was an absolute disaster, and it really put me under pressure here because I only had 1 lap to do it. I crossed the line with barely seconds to go, so I only just managed to get this lap in. But unfortunately I just really overshot on the first corner, just went a bit too wide, carrying a bit too much speed, and that handed me a half-second penalty on my only qualifying lap. So this was a bit of a disaster, and obviously, you know, serving a penalty on a qualifying lap, not ideal. It meant, therefore, it was only good enough for 11th place on the grid. Really not ideal. If I had set the same qualifying lap I did in the first race, I would be in the top 4 easily. But here we are back in P11. It's going to be quite a lot of work from here to make it up towards the front of the grid. But let's do the best we can do. And I can assure you this was actually a really fun race. A very, very close one. So let's see what we can do. 11th place, 12 laps around Red Bull Ring. Can we make up a good 10 positions and win the race? That is going to be very difficult. But let's see if we can at least get into the top 5. Now, in towards turn 3. My main worry here is field spread. Of course, there's lots of cars in front. They're going to start fighting. We're going to start losing a lot of time, and that is never ideal. But with the pit stop, you do have to take the pit stop, and that of course can get you in free air and get out of the traffic, get out of the fighting. And that looks like a very tantalizing option right now, as we're going defensive and narrow. Cars in front, we're definitely losing a bit of time here. I can just see the gap to the leader just slowly creeping up over the course of this lap, which is never ideal. And at this point here, as we head towards the penultimate corner, I decide, yeah, we've got to go for it. We've got to do this pit stop now and get out of this traffic. Otherwise, we're just going to be losing time way too much. So we peel off. Let's do this pit stop now and not make the same mistake as last time. So here, don't change tyres and don't refuel. And this is going to be the most pointless pit stop of all time. We're just going to head in, do nothing and leave. So the Mazda boys wait in anticipation of doing nothing, as they do amazingly. In fact, only the Lollipop Man had to actually do his job. And it's quite nice, I suppose, that we've kept them in employment, even though they're not actually doing anything. But that's probably not too good for our finances. So now this race has 2 groups. The group I'm in here, and then the other group of cars which has not pitted. And this is always quite an interesting dynamic in a race. We are basically now just racing my group versus the other group. And it's all about just getting some fast, consistent, clean laps in. And therefore, once the other guys pit, I should hopefully be able to jump some of them. And now it's just a case of, yeah, just get your head down. Let's try and set some fast, consistent laps. In the previous race, I was able to get into the mid 136s. So if I can start doing that sort of lap time, then that would be great. This time is going to be a little bit off because it was an out lap. But from here, you can see some cars already going for their pit stop. And over the course of the 12 laps in this race, eventually every car would do that exact same thing. So unfortunately that car comes out just in front, but it is someone to aim at, and I can eventually get into their slipstream and hopefully gain a bit of time. And my main concern really is that I don't want to get into a fight with anyone and just start losing loads of time. The main thing we want here is to start working together as a group and form a bit of a union together to work against the other big group at the front of the grid, at the front of the pack. So coming down, this is the end of lap number 3 in P13, catching up with the Dutchman just in front here, definitely into the slipstream now. We're going to try and size up a move towards the turn 3 braking point, setting the fastest lap of the race so far, 36.6, so that's good. But now, potential time loss on the cards, as we come right up behind the Dutchman. Up the inside we go. He doesn't move across to defend. So as long as I get my braking right here for turn 3, then this should be a fairly textbook move. On the brakes we go. Perhaps overcooking slightly. But we get through. Missing the apex slightly, but it's job done. Up into P11. I was hoping here he wouldn't come back and try to retake me, because as I've just mentioned, we're trying to not lose too much time. Forced him slightly narrow to make him think twice about doing it. and thankfully I was just about able to keep the position, but a bit of time lost, which is a bit annoying. We need to try to work together here as he has a half look into this corner, and we need to work together to make sure we can gain on the cars in front. And the car immediately in front, as the leader interestingly pits. Car immediately in front is the Frenchman, going fairly quickly, good pace. We're not quite in the strong slipstream zone. We are in the slipstream, but we need to get within, let's say, half a second, and then we can really start gaining on this car in front. Take some nicer lines there, carrying a bit more speed, I think, than the guy in front. And we've gained a couple of tenths there. This is good. We can now hopefully gain on this straight and the following one, and gain a couple of tenths for free. Towards turn 1, braking just before the 100 board, carry the speed in, over the curb, on the power, making sure we don't run too wide to get a penalty. That one was quite close. And is the guy in front going to get a penalty? No, but that is where the leader is. You can see the guy in the distance. That is the effective race leader. That was the Greek guy who was first about a lap ago, just pitted. And so that's the barometer really. Everyone else in that leading group should pit or should come out of the pits somewhere between that Greek guy and where I am. So this could be quite interesting to see where people leave the pit lane. So these next few laps are crucial. I have to make sure that we get some quick laps in now and try to jump as many people over strategy as possible. So I was initially thinking that this race would probably be quite boring, you know, a low tyre wear race. But actually this requirement for one pit stop did actually make it a little bit more tactical and quite more enjoyable. So a few more people going into the pit lane there. I think that looked like 3 or 4 cars going in. And so we're going to see how many positions we can jump. Currently in 10th. It'd be good if we can jump 3 or more. Let's see. Through the final 2 corners of lap number 5. Almost halfway into this race. Rounding out the 5th lap in P10. Over the line we go. I think it was actually 4 cars going into the pit lane. A 36.7. So the consistency is decent so far. A couple of cars, as you can see on the right hand side, exiting the pit lane. I think we are going to jump one of them at least. And we've gone up 3 positions. And you can see a couple of cars exiting the pit lane just behind us there. So quite a big group of cars behind. And definitely I think the strategy was good to go into the pit lane very early. Getting very close here for P6. Looking up the inside. Are we going to get this job done? Carrying quite a lot of speed in. And overshooting slightly. The Frenchman is going to come back at me here on the exit. And this is the thing I don't want really to happen too much fighting. But thankfully this Frenchman, I think he gets the picture here. He's going to tuck in behind and we're going to work together. So over the course of the last couple of laps I slowly reeled him in. So I guess he realises that I was at least slightly quicker. And seeing perhaps the potential in a partnership here. Working together to try to catch up with the cars in front. And that's fine by me. Let's try to catch up. Let's work together. Let's go for it and see what we can do here. So 2 cars immediately in front. How many cars are still to pit? 3. 2 of them are going in right now. So it'll be interesting to see if I can jump the pair of them and move up a few more positions. We're currently in P6 of all places. So coming through the penultimate corner, dropping down into the final corner. This is going to be halfway through the race. And it's going quite well so far. Obviously qualifying was a massive disaster. But with half the race left to go, we're sitting quite pretty here and we could definitely jump up a couple more positions. The leader is not too far away. If you exclude the guy who's way out in the lead on his own, he still has to pit and will probably come out behind. So now in 4th, which is effectively 3rd. So the 2 cars you see in front are really just the cars we are racing against. The guy who's miles out in the lead, I don't think he's really in the picture seriously. So let's take a look then. Through the apex of 3, lap number 7, trying to carry the speed through as nice as possible. 1.1 the gap to the Saudi driver in front. At the end of lap 8, slowly but surely catching up. Not much, but just a slight amount. The gap just below a second for the first time. 1:36.6 on lap 8. Good consistency in the mid to high 36s. That's about the area I wanted to be. And There is a Dutchman a couple of positions behind who is a bit quicker, but they are a good maybe 3 seconds behind, so I didn't have to worry too much about their pace. This is the end of lap number 9, and this is the time where I just began to creep into the slipstream of the car in front, setting on 1:36.4, my fastest lap of the race so far. So we're coming into some good pace here at a very good time, and the Greek driver there not too far away, maybe 2.5 seconds in front, but with only 3 laps to go, this is going to be quite tricky to overtake both of these cars. Let's see what we can do though about catching up and overhauling the Saudi driver here. Unfortunately, it's going to be a bit of a mistake as we get onto the brakes into this hairpin. I just lift off the brakes a bit too soon. You can see they're missing the apex, and we're just going to lose a bit of momentum on the exit. That gap goes up by a couple of tenths. Very frustrating and not a good time to make a mistake like that. But lap 11, can we make an impression here with 2 laps remaining? I'm definitely sensing that I'm gaining on the Greek driver, who's not too far away, but the Saudi driver running a little bit wide on the exit of turn 1 and is going to get a penalty. This is therefore a really crucial remainder of this lap. I need to get as close as possible before the penalty zone to fully make sure that I get this position once this guy serves this penalty. So this is a very important lap now. We can jump up into an effective second place, and then we'll see the guy in the lead. He'll pit at the end of this lap, and yeah, that should be P2. With P1 really not that far away. This has been a very good drive, and I'm kicking myself that I didn't qualify better, because I think with this level of pace I should have been able to win this race, but I should have been able to win it easily. But now it's definitely a challenge, and with 1.25 laps to go, Greek driver doing just enough to stay in front. But is the Saudi driver doing enough to stay in front of me? I don't think so. I'm very close now. Coming up to the penalty zone, he's going to move to the right hand side, serve it. I'm going to move up a position, there we go, up into P3. Going to turn into P2 in just a moment. Dropping down once again, penultimate corner, lap number 11. Penultimate corner, penultimate lap. See what we can do then. The gap to the Greek driver there, 1.6. We're requiring quite a big mistake or a penalty from this guy, and we could steal the race win on the final lap. It's been a very good performance so far. We are now in P2, 1 lap to go, and well, we're just waiting for that penalty to pop up. Hopefully he gets one. He's been driving well enough so far. Fortunately for me though, coming up in towards turn 3, the guy behind is just going to brake slightly too late, and we're just going to get a nice push from behind. Going to run wide on the exit of the corner, and unfortunately that's going to hand us a 0.5 second penalty. We've also got dirty tyres here, so that was a very frustrating time to get a penalty. I now have to make sure that I can keep the speed up and make sure that I can keep P2. This could easily lose me P2. With the Frenchman following me through just behind, this is again a crucial moment in the race. I need to get these next couple of corners dead right, otherwise I'm going to lose second place right at the death. The leader, I think he's got this race. There's nothing I can do really to try and catch him. It's all about salvaging P2. Winding around long left, keeping to the right hand side. I'm going to serve this penalty, going to try and protect the inside in towards the penultimate turn. Here comes the Frenchman, forcing him to the outside, and it's not quite going to be enough for him, as I'm able to just about stay ahead. It was so close. Thankfully it was only a 0.5 second penalty and nothing more, and at the end of all of that we're going to come across the line to finish in P2. And to be honest, that was a really satisfying race, a satisfying result after such bad qualifying, and there it is, confirmation of the result. And yeah, I was really happy with it in the end. It was quite a pleasing race, but yeah, should have qualified better, and it kind of just shows you one mistake can definitely ruin your entire race. But thank you so much for watching. I shall catch you next time. Goodbye.